Hello, my astrology friends. This is Lada from AstroladaOfficial. And today, my guest is astrologer, evolutionary astrologer Mila, who is here to talk to us about the upcoming, which is already
Hello, my astrologer.
Sorry, my kid is around. Mila is talking to us about the evolutionary perspective on the Pluto Trine Jupiter, which is just happening. Hello, Mila.
Hi, Lada. Nice to be back with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Can you tell us more? Is it happening already? It is. How long is the duration of this transit aspect? How often does it happen for us? Is it opening or closing a trine? When
This is
did
the
it start?
this is the first trine, and I actually have the charts ready because it all started, of course, with the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction, which took place in 2020. So this is the first trine since then. And usually the first trine, in my understanding, has the quality of Gemini Leo. So it's about, gathering information in order to find the purpose and expansion, before the opposition take place, which is then the balancing point, because Leo can be like a very it's an energy full of fire and creativity, but also it is not so mature yet. So then we have the in conjunction, which is the blind spot, and the opposition, which then creates the necessity for balancing. And then that's how the cycle goes. But I have the chart ready. It's very fascinating because of where everything was at the time, and also the nodes during the time. I have the chart ready, but the nodes during, I think it was because Pluto and Jupiter conjuncted 3 times in 2020, and one of the conjunction, the nodes were exactly in the same degree, but reversed to when they were when it was the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in 2011, what we were talking about last time. So it's interesting how this cycle continuously help us to grow and evolve. And of course, now everything is under influence of these new cycles that began between Pluto and the personal planet, especially this year, the rule of the southern and north node, Mars and Venus, already in the sign of Aquarius, which was the first conjunction for the next 20 years. And now everything is changing because, as we know, Pluto has only one more retrograde into Capricorn, which will be only for 2 months. From September until November, and that's it. After that, we're going straight full stream ahead, and now with Jupiter Uranus in a new phase, in a new cycle, in the sign of Taurus. This is breaking us free from this limiting belief system that we held about ourselves, and now with Jupiter being in Gemini, but the ruler Mercury being still in a sign of Taurus, this is going to help us to expand the perception of who we really are and start connecting with the reality and the external world and each other in a very different way, because we are being pushed towards evolution, which at the same time is also pushing us into acknowledging our multidimensionality of who we actually truly are. And that's what is, to me, is the main energy of the Gemini archetype, is the multidimensionality, because with Gemini, it's about gathering information. It's like everything is everything. It just depends what information you have in. Of course, in opposition with Sagittarius, Sagittarius then creates the truth out of whatever is the information that we hold in. We have the opportunity to discern when it goes through Virgo and let go of what doesn't resonate in Pisces. But at the end of the day, the Mercury and the Jupiter is the information we gather through which we create a perception of reality, and that's what creates our belief system. And as we know, Sagittarius comes before Capricorn, and Capricorn is the cardinal sign that gives it the form, because it's the earth. So it's very important what we believe, because that then manifests into a reality. And we know it's one of the Hermetic principles that the universe is mental. So everything starts from the thoughts. So now Jupiter being the sign of Gemini, and everything transiting through Gemini is making a trine to Pluto. So we already had Sun trine in Pluto, Venus trine in Pluto. Now Jupiter is going to trine Pluto, and literally 2 days later, Mercury, as the ruler of Jupiter, is going to trine Pluto and conjunct Jupiter at the same time on the same day. This is supporting us in our evolutionary path of this Aquarian age, ready or not, like it or not, but this is where we at. And it's inviting us then, in order for us to reclaim our power, because in essence we never lost it, we just forgot, we just weren't aware because of the belief system that we holding on to, because of the conditioning of past few thousand years. now is absolutely necessary for us to reclaim that power and start perceiving reality and each other and ourselves, each other and the reality, because it's from the inside out process in a very different way. And this is what Jupiter is going to help us to do. So Jupiter, as I keep saying, it expands everything it touches. So it expands whatever we give it to work with. So if we are still holding on to old belief system, and especially limiting belief system, and like playing with the program and ideas that are limiting, that's what Jupiter is going to bring more of to our consciousness in order for us to transmute it. But if we are already opening ourselves up to other possibilities, other sources of information, other potentialities, Jupiter is going to push us forward with that, because we know Jupiter says yes to things, but it says yes to whatever it is that we give it to play with. And Mercury is in the sign of Taurus still at the time of this trine. And Mercury is as of this week, because we're recording this prior to that happening, but Mercury as of this week will be in a new phase conjunction with Uranus, the ruler of Pluto, and Pluto is retrograde. And when planet is retrograde, is forcing us to go inwards, to reevaluate and reshape our inner world in a sense, because Pluto already has been in Aquarius for the second time. And now this is the second retrograde of Pluto in the sign of Aquarius. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Pluto has one more retrograde into Capricorn for the very last time in our lifetime, which we already discussed in previous videos. And during this retrograde, Pluto is really helping us, in a sense, to recalibrate ourselves and readjust to this new frequency. Because also last time Pluto was in Aquarius and retrograde, the nodes were in different signs. Well, last time Pluto was in Aquarius and started this retrograde, the nodes were still in Taurus and Scorpio.
So and they're squaring it. They were squaring them. So the
exactly.
first Pluto in Aquarius retrograde was much harder for us. As also we know that exactly around that time, there was Lahaina burned down in Hawaii.
Yes.
It's tension, but now it's positive, this Pluto retrograde, because of the Jupiter trine. So let me try and summarize it. You evolutionary astrologers say that Pluto is the collective consciousness and the level of consciousness and the evolution of consciousness of humans. And now Jupiter trining Pluto is a very good sign for opening up knowledge, information, and that we're going to expand the consciousness in an easy, harmonious way. And it's happening for us right now.
Well, in evolutionary astrology, it's quite interesting, and at least this is my understanding. I'm not saying that this is the gospel, but I was always surprised when I first studied evolutionary astrology, that the squares are being looked at as something very positive, because evolutionary is forcing us. It creates so much pressure and tension that we have no other choice than change. We have to change, which is, of course, the life, and the only constant in life is change. We have to change, otherwise we wouldn't even be here anymore if we weren't evolving continuously. And the trine is something that in traditional astrology, we look at it as like, oh yeah, it's blessing, everything's going to be easy. But in evolutionary astrology, and this is how I perceive it, because the soul say it's easy and we're ready for it, doesn't mean the human ego will think the same thing. So this is where I feel that, yeah, it's a trine, and on a soul level, on a collective, because it's all the same soup, we all as a soul incarnate, we came here to work on our own things, in the same process, help to heal our collective wounding, ancestor wounding, and collective. We are all part of the one, and but we are a unique expression, of course. So anyway, going back to this trine, that is happening for us individually and collectively, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be all just easy slide, like roses and butterfly and everything. It means on a soul level, individually and collectively, we're ready. So on a soul level, we know that, well, this is the way forward, but it doesn't mean that everything that's going to lead us towards this evolution is just going to be super easy. It just means that it's in alignment with the evolution, and we're going ahead, and we were born for this. On a soul level, we all chose to be incarnate at this time with our free will, and on a soul level, the soul is excited, because the soul goes, yes, expansion, new adventures, expanding through experiencing new horizons, making different choices. But because in a human form, we have the human ego, which keeps us safe and secure to help us survive. It's kind of like conflict, isn't it? Because between Aquarius and Cancer, we have an inconjunction. We have Aquarius Cancer and Aquarius Virgo, there is an inconjunction. And it's because the Aquarius is our evolution, is us going evolving and going forward, going beyond where we've been before. But Cancer is our safety and security. So Cancer is what tries to keep us safe and secure in order to survive, which is based on the past. Because as we know, Moon, well, it's our inner world, but in evolutionary astrology, Moon also represents our ego identity, which is the archive of the past. Our ego mind, our brain is the archive of the past. So it projects the past experiences into present moment, and that creates our future, because it tries to keep us feel protected. Everything. That's why even when people say, "Oh, I'm self-sabotaging," there is no such a thing, because it just means that some aspect of you is trying to protect you from that experience. But with this Aquarian energy, it's saying, ready or not, we're going ahead, because now everything in Gemini is saying we need to open ourselves up to multidimensional essence of who we are. Yes, we are a human being at the moment. We are divine being having a new human experience, and we are in a physical form, and we have to have this experience. So it doesn't mean that we are just going to be living on cloud nine, you know, as I just experienced a big shock coming from Mexico back to Europe. In Mexico, you know, being all in my bubble, it's perfect. You know, I can be doing my spiritual work 24/7, and then suddenly big shock, you know, coming back to reality, 3D, interacting with everyday thing. And then we have to find a balance. We have to find a balance. Like, yes, we cannot discredit that, you know, that we are a divine being. And of course, we are always connected to the source, whether consciously or subconsciously, because it's the spirit that animates the body. But at the same time, we are having a human experience. So we need to find a balance between the two. So with this trine being in Gemini, it's saying, and this is also something we already spoke about, we need to learn to hold both. Yes, I am not gaslighting myself and saying that, oh yeah, this is all in alignment with evolution and it's perfect. Because from the human experience, from the us being a human being, having a 5 sensory experience, is not going to be all easy. Yes, it's in alignment and the soul is ready for it and the collective is ready for this jump, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. So this is where if you don't understand the totality of who we are, which is not just a single identity of this single incarnation, then it's challenging. So
this is very true, because I've been, since Jupiter entered Gemini a few days, like now it's happening, I've been having some powerful realizations that, you know, I box myself, I'm a mother, I'm an astrologer, and suddenly I'm a shy person, all those labels, which is very Geminian thing, label things, we give them name to ourselves, and suddenly, because Jupiter is illumination and knowledge, and I've been noticing I can be a lot of other stuff at the same time. I can be shy and I can be outgoing. It's things that are controversial, like the twins, the good. I can be both things. It's a matter of habit. So I'm not this or that. And I've been having those awarenesses, and a lot of boundaries are breaking within my consciousness, because Gemini, where Jupiter is very much about the consciousness as well, how you perceive things. And I've been saying, I can be anything I want as long as I make it a habit and focus on it with my mind in my daily narrative, everyday narrative in my head. And it's been very liberating and making me feel that this multidimensionality and that you're talking about, I see it even on an everyday level, not just that we truly have other dimensions. There is a higher me in the 5th dimension, in the 7th dimension, but also in everyday life, those different roles that I should not be boxed into just certain labels. I can be any labels at the same time. So thank you for bringing this up. It's great work on this level of consciousness for me, what I'm noticing.
And this is exactly like even the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. This is what he keeps saying, that when we get to point that we are nothing, no one, nowhere, that's when the whole universe opens up, you know, because suddenly we are not limited by these labels. And as I said, it's very interesting that we had all these occurrences, you know, with all these previous transits that we were talking about, during which, you know, the nodes were in Capricorn and Cancer. And this is what I wanted to show, how it's reversed, you know, during the time of Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, the number 3, which happened on the solar eclipse in Capricorn, which is what we were discussing last time. The nodes were reversed to where the nodes were where Pluto were conjuncting Jupiter. It was the opposite direction. So I believe that it was the south node in Cancer, and then it was the north node in Capricorn. I have to look at the chart because I'm getting it confused because I have so many charts that I've been looking at in preparation for this. But it's interesting like how it's flipping on its head, because of course at that time Saturn was just about to enter. This is, you know, at the time of the 2020, Saturn was just about to enter Aquarius. It was still in the sign of Capricorn, then Aquarius, then back into Capricorn. And then now, 2024, Saturn is done with all of that, and now it's in Pisces. So it's dissolving that which since 2020, and we know all what was happening in 2020 and thereafter. And there was the Pluto-Saturn conjunction, we had the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction, you know, Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, everything happened at the same time. And this is where we were started to recognize the limitations of the reality that we've been experiencing until that point. That suddenly the things that maybe we weren't so aware of, conscious about, or paying attention to suddenly became very conscious to us because of what was happening, and we were all being forced to actually stop and think about this, like what actually is creating the structure of my life. And even though until that point we might have thought, especially with the Saturn in Capricorn, that okay, yeah, this is the safety and security because it comes from this authority that is external of me. But then when Saturn moved into the sign of Aquarius, and then we had the Saturn-Uranus square for like year and a half or something, then we really started feeling the pressure that, oh, but if that external authority doesn't have my best interest, as their, you know, my best interests are not being considered, then there is a pressure for me to liberate myself from that. And this is again the Cancer, the safety and security comes from the within. It's all this. It's interesting because people might say, well, how can Cancer be that and that and that? But this is where we are the multidimensional, because we have 12 archetypes at the moment that we consciously playing with, even though we know that there are, you know, there is another sign of zodiac and there are all these different asteroids, goddesses and everything else. If we took into consideration and think of at the same time, at the moment our brain would blow up, because at the moment we are in a process of expanding, but we are not quite ready for everything that's available for us, because I mean universe is unlimited, so the information is unlimited, the wisdom and knowledge is unlimited. So we just playing with whatever is relevant and necessary for us at this stage of our evolution, right? But anyway, when we think about Cancer and Capricorn as a polarity to each other, and we're trying to find a middle ground, the true sense of safety and security can only ever come from within. And it's the same with regards to your true sense of purpose and destiny, which is Leo, the one that follows Cancer, can only come from within. Because if you don't know who you are, which again, what precedes that is Taurus, if you don't trust yourself and you don't have the strong word, the roots, like we know, like with the trees, you know, before they create this very strong trunk and go into branches and leaves, they create the very strong root system. So that is the Taurus, and that's where we have Uranus at the moment. It's dismantling that root system that has been created through the external authority, and we are forced to find the resourcefulness within, because through that we're going to actually realize, through this Gemini and multidimensional inquiry and questioning everything, we're going to start realizing that we are not what we thought we were. That which we thought that we value, or that which we thought was to create a sense of safety and security, is not what we thought it was, because Jupiter is going to start expanding, like think bigger, go wider, go bigger, you know. And then with this Cancer, and then readjust in the sense of who we think we are, we're going to actually discover our true sense of purpose and destiny, because it's all connected. Everything is connected and built on the top of one another. And then from Cancer you go to Capricorn. If you have the internal sense of safety and security, then you feel that you can be in charge of your life. You don't have to look up to someone else to tell you. If you know in your heart, you know, with the Leo, the heart consciousness, which is where we're heading, all the channelers are saying the future is based on heart as a currency, heart consciousness. It's going to be about this electromagnetic connection between us, and obviously eventually at some point we will be all telepathic, you know, these words that so many things get misinterpreted and lost in translation. It will not be necessary, because we will just connect on a different level. But we are now at the moment building towards it. So with Uranus dismantling this Taurus, this old structure of you know, what we thought was our reality, Venus as the ruler of Uranus, until recently Jupiter as well, and also South Node. This Venus is in Gemini, conjunct in Sun in a few days, and also making it, she just made a trine to Pluto actually just before Jupiter moving to Gemini. And Venus is helping us to resolve this South Node, which was squared by Pluto the entire last year, first from the sign of Scorpio, then from the sign of Libra. And we covered this in many videos. And it said we need to resolve this South Node. Now, how are we going to resolve it? Well, we need to kind of understand what was the meaning of that. Because with the South Node, to me, it's not the same quality, but it still is similar to like this Pisces and Neptune, the past. The past. So if we don't,
I totally see the South Node like Neptune and 12th house.
So if we don't understand the past, and we don't understand why that had to take place, and make a peace with that, have a compassion for the old version of ourselves, whichever century we lived in, and made the choices we have made, which is why also when people start digging too deep into past life regressions and stuff, it kind of can get actually counterproductive, and even to a certain extent damaging, because yes, we weren't all angels, in past incarnation. We weren't the evolved version of ourselves we are now, especially if you are a light worker in this lifetime, and then it can create all the shame and guilt and all the sense. So we have to have the compassion and forgiveness for the old versions of ourselves, because like I said, it's all connected, us as an individual having the experience, us as a part of our ancestor line, and us as a part of the collective, and learn from it and let it go. And even with regards to this Jupiter, now of course being in Gemini is going to make us question everything, especially I feel this is going to really affect our religious orientations. Because Gemini is like, well, but everything is the truth or the lie. Well, it just depends which way you're looking at it. Which questions are you asking? Who are you asking? Because Mercury is as a archetype is like hermaphrodite. No, it's not like man or woman. It doesn't care. It's like impartial. Mercury is Mercury. Mercury does its things, right? It's a messenger. It goes from up to underworld and anywhere, and it's just like, okay, I'm just a messenger. Don't shoot the messenger, right? So now Jupiter being in the sign of Gemini, as we know, Mercury goes retrograde like 4 times a year. So during the time while Jupiter is going to be in the sign of Gemini, Mercury is going to be retrograde like 5 times, 6 times, right? So, well, at least 5 times, I think. I didn't look at all the dates, but this is a lot of reevaluation, a lot of reevaluation with regards to how do we identify the reality we've been experiencing until this point, and is this what is going to be supporting us going forward into this Aquarius age, which takes us back to the Saturn in Pisces. The structure of reality that we've been experiencing until this point is outdated. It's ended. It's the world card. It's ended. The cycle is ending. That's it. Like it, don't like it, ready or not, it doesn't matter. Evolution is saying that's it. And now with everything from Gemini trine in Pluto, and Pluto now being retrograde, which is helping us to digest this information and recalibrate our frequency to that new, energy that we've been playing with since the beginning of the year, especially. Now we have the opportunity to realize that, okay, what it is that we need to release, but we cannot release it if we don't understand the meaning and we are in a resistance to it. Which is the same thing, like I keep saying with the wars. If we have the resistance that this shouldn't be happening, why is this happening? And we don't understand the story that is behind it, and it doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it like, okay, well, maybe it's time to stop passing on the same story from one generation to another, to keep creating the same pattern of hate and division, and keep creating the same outcome because of the same pattern. That when is it going to end? And somebody has to be the one to make a different choice, to say, yes, this is what happened to me, my family, my ancestors, whatever. But how many times do we want to recreate the same wheel? And that is Gemini, the choice, the lover's card in tarot, which is the number 6, which is about balance. What choice are we going to make to create a different result? Because all the choices that we have made over the past thousands of years, we know what results they led to. We have the evidence of that.
So we'll be able to see different choices now, different Because also Gemini rules the neck part where you spin the head actually. This lower part of the neck where you look around to see different choices. And this is Jupiter would expand our ability to perceive what is surrounding us in the reality and to see different choices, different opportunities, different ways of seeing reality. So this is great. And Pluto definitely, because the trine with Pluto, it means it's expanding our evolution and our consciousness.
And especially because, yes?
Are you showing us charts or you don't have to see them?
I have a lot of charts. I have a lot of charts ready, so I don't think we even be able to look at all of them, but I wanted to at least show people some of the very interesting things that I was I was geeking out about. So let's just go. So this is the first. Okay, so as I keep saying, we always have to start with when was the conjunction, because that's when everything began. The conjunction is the conception. So yes, now we are experiencing this Pluto Jupiter trine, which is happening, well, for me in the UK it will be in early hours of June 3rd. For you in Bulgaria also, for people in the US it will be still June 2nd. Either way, Jupiter, this is the Jupiter-Pluto trine, right? Pluto-Jupiter trine, we can see Venus and Sun are just about to have a conjunction. They're literally going to have a conjunction within 24 hours from then. Mercury also, I believe, is making a sextile to Neptune. Yes, Mercury is making sextile to Neptune. Also, as we can see, moon is already coming closer to Gemini because we have the new moon in Gemini on 6/6. So this is all happening as a prelude, as a building block towards this new moon in Gemini. New moon, what it is? New moon is a conception of something new, of a new energy. And as I mentioned, by this point, Mercury is in a new phase conjunction to Uranus. Uranus is the ruler of Pluto. Mercury is making the trine to Pluto. Venus, as the ruler of the South Node, which we are resolving, is conjuncting Sun, and together they're going to make a trine to South Node. And Pluto is, just chilling over there on the retrograde 1 degree of, Aquarius, making ready, preparing itself for getting into Capricorn for the very last time, while Saturn, of course, here is preparing for the square with the Sun. But because Sun is the center stage, this is technically the energy of the last quarter square. Last quarter square is, again, what do we need to break free from and release so this cycle can finally end? And this is all under influence of Mars as the ruler of the North Node in the new phase conjunction with the North Node. New phase conjunction with Chiron, which we already covered, is the wounded healer. Why do we feel afraid of the unknown when the babies don't feel afraid of the unknown? Just to come and be incarnate in this body, we have to have a lot of courage, because we know that not everything we're going to experience is predictable because of the free will component. So there are all these new phases. Jupiter and Uranus, Jupiter and Mercury are going to conjunct, literally a day later on the 4th. And like I said, they together are still trining Pluto, then coming towards the trine to the south. So everything is supporting us towards this new moon in Gemini, which is to see this new way of perceiving reality. And we know that Mercury was retrograde in the sign of Aries, conjuncted North Node, conjuncted Chiron 3 times. And this is the cycle of Mercury now with Pluto conjuncting in Aquarius as of February this year. So this is all starting new cycles, Aries, new way, new direction, new way, Mercury in new phase with Uranus, because we need to start identifying ourselves in a different way in order to unlock the multidimensional aspects of who we are, because everything that you've ever been in previous incarnation, including everything that your ancestors been, because you were some of them, and everything that ever happened on this planet as a part of human collective consciousness and evolutions, lives within you. It all exists within you right now, and it's all available for us to tap into if we understand who we are, and that we can, because the ability is in us. Chiron is going to move into Taurus in 2026. So Chiron, now still being a sign of Aries, is just helping us to break free from this fear of the unknown and just to take the leap of faith, to have the courage to just try. because with this, you know, where we head in this new evolutionary pathway, yeah, it's never quite happened exactly the way it's going to be happening. Yes, there are a lot of similarities with regards to Atlantis and stuff, which, you know, gets triggered in us, and a lot of things that are playing out that didn't happen in such a past history, you know, wars and all these climate changes and everything. So this is all triggering memories, but they also memories of some ancient time, ancient civilizations. But now at the moment, we have the opportunity to heal all of that and change the pattern, because as we know, the nodes are going to move into Pisces Virgo in January 2025. And this is already when Pluto is in Aquarius to stay, for the, you know, ingressed for the last time. So this is the trine. This is the trine that is happening on Sunday, Monday morning, depending where you are in the world. And it is supporting us in this process of resolving this south node, which was the externalization to the, you know, someone else, you know, that someone else that is outside of you, the Libra. And Venus now being in Gemini is saying, well, you are part of everything, and everything is part of you, because we are all multidimensional, and we are all working on co-creating this new evolutionary path for all of us. And we can do it, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. That's what I keep saying, like being incarnate at this time and, you know, going ahead with this evolution and staying here on this planet in a physical body, you are a very strong evolved soul, and don't doubt that, because otherwise you wouldn't be here. We are living in really revolutionary times. So if your soul wasn't able to face that which, you know, we are part of co-creating, you wouldn't be here. You know, you wouldn't come here just to do what. So, you know, so this is where with this Uranus in Taurus is creating all these unexpected situations that are re-traumatizing us, to help us to find the resiliency. You know, because the Scorpio in opposition with Taurus, you know, the true power, self-empowerment actually is not with someone else, it's within you. But it doesn't mean you don't need other people, because we all came here to co-create, but the true essence of your strength is within you. And we will have much deeper understanding of that when Chiron moves into the sign of Taurus. But now going back to this point of conception, which was the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction, we had the 3 of them throughout 2020. The first one happened on April 5th, which was literally just 3 days before a full moon in Libra. Yeah, there was a full moon in Libra on April 8th. So we can see here the nodes. So this is the conjunction. The nodes were on 2 degrees yet. So this is where it was in the North Node in Cancer. So as we were discussing last time when we met for the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction, Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, this is the part 3, because Jupiter-Uranus also conjuncted 3 times. First time was in Aries, the other 2 times were in Pisces. So Jupiter-Uranus conjunction part 3, the nodes were exactly in the same place but reversed. We can see the south node, which is, you know, what we are evolving, because we're going towards the north node, which is that who is the authority. This actually, the 3rd conjunction happened on the solar eclipse, new moon in Capricorn in 2011, which was the first lunation of 2011. And Pluto, North Node, it happened on the North Node. Pluto was in a closing phase with the eclipse. Mars, as the current ruler of the North Node, was in a new phase, which was like, this is where the cycle had begun, you know, with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, the last one prior to the one we just experienced now on April 20th. And, you know, here, 27 degrees of Pisces, on that which we learned from the past, you know, this understanding of the past cycles, Pisces, the totality of everything that came before us, we need to find the courage to step into our own authority. And this is what started this process, you know, 2011. And notes that the South Node was in Cancer, which was indicating, as, you know, Cancer ruled by the eclipse at the time, that you are your authority. You need to let go of these old identities that made us believe we weren't good enough, right? And also Capricorn at the time, North Node at the time being in Capricorn, ruled by this Saturn. Saturn was squaring. It was squaring the eclipse, and it was the last quarter square, the closing square, which is again, what are we breaking free from? And like I said, during the Pluto-Jupiter conjunction number 1, part 1, because they had 3 of those, the node was in the same place but reversed. North Node now is in Cancer, which is saying now, because, you know, the South Node already, you know, like gone through the entire Capricorn technically, and this is 2020. So this is where we are starting to recognize, this is just when lockdown started, that, oh, maybe it's not so safe and secure to have someone external of us to call the shots, right? And then North Node being in Cancer is saying, okay, throughout these 9 years, you know, since 2011 until now, you had the opportunity to understand that, well, you know, the world as we know it, as we are living in at the moment, is built on the hierarchical structure that says somebody is at the top, everybody else is at the bottom, and it doesn't give them much of an agency to decide for themselves. But in 2020, when we all got the shock of our life, the North Node was in Cancer, which said, like, okay, this is the opportunity to start finding the inner resources and the sense of safety and security within. And interestingly enough, everybody was at home, right? Because it was a lockdown. So how else you going to find it? Well, I mean, yes, you can use the time to watch Netflix and feel sorry for yourself, or you can use the time to start reevaluating everything and go, hold on a minute, what the hell is going on? You know, and start inquiring, because Cancer, it's, even though we know Cancer sidestep everything, but it's still a cardinal sign. It represents the change of direction. So this was the conjunction number 1. Saturn was already on 0 degrees of Aquarius. Pluto and Saturn again. Saturn was conjunct Mars. Mars was in Aquarius. What are we breaking free from? Mars is the current ruler of the North Node. At the time, Mars was in Aquarius. We need to go beyond. We need to go beyond this limitation. And like I said, this was prior to full moon in Libra. Where is the balance? Is there a balance? I mean, Venus is in Gemini, which is exactly where Jupiter is right now. Mercury just about to move into Gemini. Venus is in Gemini right now. So it's saying, like, we need to start expanding the way we perceive in everything, the way we perceive in ourselves, because Uranus was already in Taurus, breaking us apart. Like, hey, listen, there is a shock of your life to actually help you understand who you really are, and then you are worthy and able to overcome much more than you think, which is what I keep saying to my clients, because we all have this, you know, this inferior ego that is making us feel, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, who am I to say something, you know? But actually, you know, with this Venus being in Gemini, so well, the whole universe lives within you, for start. And the other thing, the other aspect of Taurus, and when we're going through challenges and difficulties, is to show you, well, everything that ever happened to you in your life, you survive 100% of it. So obviously you are built of something, made of something that is helping you to overcome whatever obstacles life throws at you, even if they're unexpected. So with this Mars being ruled by this Uranus, you know, and there is a square, we can see there is I mean, it's out of sign, but there is already a square in action between this cluster of planets that are conjunct and Uranus. And this is, well, between Pluto and Uranus is the first quarter square, which is crisis and action. Something has to change. But with regards to all these other 3 guys, and Uranus is the closing square. What do we need to release? Well, what we need to release is this trauma that froze us in time, that made us disconnect with ourselves. So this was the conjunction number 1, and then we had 2 more. And interestingly enough, the second one was right before the lunar eclipse in Capricorn. I mean, you can't make this up, you know, seriously. The last Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is solar eclipse in Capricorn on the North Node, and this one was the lunar eclipse in Capricorn, which happened a few days later. It was July 5th, I think. July 5th, yeah, July 5th, 2020. We had the full moon lunar eclipse in Capricorn, even though the node is already in Sagittarius, but it was still on the South Node. Even there is a white orb, but already it was still an eclipse in Capricorn, which is again opposition. Is there a balance with regards to this reality we are experiencing when somebody else is saying, I'm the smart one and I'm calling the shots and I'm deciding my rules, right? But we are all sovereign being, and with the Venus, you know, still being in Gemini here, Venus is saying, like, well, everything is everything. Nobody's smarter or more than you because she's in Gemini. Everything is everything. It's twins, you know, it's the same, you know, it just depends which way you look at it, right? And here we go again, Chiron, Mars conjunction, Mars in the closing phase with Chiron. So this is all in 2020. And is it actually Mars? Yeah, Mars was in Aries, right? What is this one? Yeah, here Mars is in Aquarius. Yes, Mars was again in Aries, just like it is. Well, I mean, it's still currently in Aries. It's not moving until next month in June. So anyway, here we had the full moon, a lunar eclipse in Capricorn, and the nodes were on 29 degrees. 29 degrees is the anaretic degree. South node was in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, and this is, you know, the conjunction number 2 between Pluto and Jupiter. And Jupiter already was the ruler of the South node, which said that we need to reevaluate these stories, because 29 degrees is, again, even though it's the beginning for the nodes because they go backwards, 29 degrees is the anaretic degrees, which is saying that you know, something is changing here. And 29 degrees, I mean, if it's anything else other than the nodes, it represents the completion, it represents the culmination of that sign. So Jupiter-Pluto conjuncting for the second time, it was all retrograde. Saturn was retrograde. Saturn was just about to go back into the Capricorn himself, into the sign of his rulership. It said that, okay, now we can see the totality of the story through which we were creating our reality until this point, and now we need to reevaluate, because moon was in Scorpio. Like I said, this was right before the full moon in Capricorn. So moon at the time of the conjunction was still in the sign of Scorpio, because we see with the opposition to Uranus what it is that make us feel disempowered. And it's because we don't trust ourselves to take the charge of our life and break free from the pattern that has been created by believing in these things and not seeing the other aspect of the same situation, with the Venus sextile in both Mars and Chiron, that we need to start seeing the other aspect of the situation. So this is, like I said, this was the beginning of that process, the 2020, where everything really kicked off. And now we just see the trine of that. And then during the last conjunction, which happened on November 12th, that was literally, I believe it was exactly the moon. Oh, it was the 15th. November 15th was the new moon in Scorpio. Scorpio again, ruled by Pluto. And Pluto is our evolution. So this was the conjunction number 3. Everybody was again direct, but Saturn was in Saturn was back in Capricorn. Nodes were still in Gemini and Sagittarius. Jupiter, the ruler of the South node. Gemini, Mercury was in the sign of Scorpio. And this was, as I mentioned, just before the new moon in Scorpio. So we need to face our fears. So since 2020 until this time, we've all been facing our fears. We've all been facing our shadow, because we didn't have any other choice. We were being put for the year. We were being put into our homes to face everything that was making us feel afraid and disempowered, to reevaluate everything and decide, make decisions based on where do we go from here. And this was the birthing ground for that. And now, being in the present moment, with Jupiter moving into the sign of Gemini, under the influence of Venus as the ruler of the South node, making a trine to Pluto, and now Jupiter making the trine. This is Jupiter enters Gemini chart, and then now Jupiter making the trine to Pluto. And this is again, under the influence of everything else that's going on here. Mercury new phase conjunction with Uranus as the ruler of Pluto, Venus conjuncting Sun a day later, both trine in South node. So this is what is helping us to resolve that story that during 2020 we started understanding that, well, this is not going to really work going forward, because many of us don't really want to find ourselves in the same situation we were experiencing in 2020, 2021. And in order for that to not take place again, things have to change. Like, you have to take our agency back in our hands and decide that actually I do have a say, I am equal, and I am no less than anybody else. My needs are no less than anybody else's. I matter just as much as somebody else, because we all, even though, like I keep saying, this is something that is hard to wrap the head around, because the way we were being told is that we all have to be the same in order to belong. So it was again the outside in kind of a projection that said that in order for us, and majority of us, especially us older generation, not necessarily this new generation, Pluto Sagittarius and Capricorns, and now the babies, Pluto Aquarius, as Pluto Virgo, Pluto Libra, Pluto Scorpio, we were being brought up, and of course generation before those, we were brought up in a believing that in order to fit wherever we want to fit, we need to be what the external wants us to become. So in order to find a job, you need to fulfill the requirements. In order to be in that partnership, you need to look certain way, be certain way, behave certain way. But actually now everything is shifting and it's saying, no, first you need to decide who you are and what you want. And then you're going to find people who you fit with without you having to have to change to become someone else. So everything is being turned upside down because, like I said, with the Jupiter Uranus conjunction in 2011, the nodes were upside down, and Pluto-Jupiter conjunction, the nodes were in a different direction. They said that, oh yeah, we need to start understanding what is creating the reality and let go of the old versions of who we were. And now we're creating a new versions of who we are by understanding who we really are, by starting to ask questions and looking at things multidimensionally, which is the Gemini, and now Jupiter in Gemini. It's going to support us in this process. And interestingly enough, by the time Jupiter moves into the sign of Cancer, Neptune and Saturn will be already in the sign of Aries. That will be June next year. It will be right before the full moon in Sagittarius. So Jupiter will be in Cancer for the full moon in Sagittarius 2025. By that point, Uranus will be just about moving into the sign of Gemini himself, and Neptune and Saturn will both be in the sign of Aries for their first ingress into that sign, but then they will have retrograde. And also the next Jupiter-Uranus conjunction will be happening in the sign of Cancer. So this is how we are completely breaking free from everything that came before with regards to these labels, like you mentioned yourself, and the limitations that came from these labels, because again, we were being told you need to become an expert and just put one label, decide what it is you want to do, and that's it. And I know that many people like joke about Mercury, like, oh, jack of all trades by master of none. But actually, apparently, this is the way to go in Aquarian age, to know a little bit about everything, because being too fixated under one umbrella of expertise might be very limiting going forward.
A bit like the Renaissance man, basically, and encyclopedia on everything. Thank you so much, Mila. That was very insightful, very deep, and knowledgeable of yours, and very in line with all this air energy we're having, because you have a lot very strong airy energy for you. As a closing words, do you have any practical advice for people now during Pluto trine Jupiter, maybe to do that they can use beneficially that energy?
Well, I feel because, as I said, Mercury still at this time is in the sign of Taurus, even though on the late degrees. And this is something that I am, well, being challenged with and struggling with and trying to bring more into my reality because of the imbalance I've been experiencing from going from one extreme to another, is to really learn to ground, to learn to excavate this part of every day for yourself where you can find that center. And especially because there is so much, like you said, air energy present, and it will continue so, and especially from the moment when all these planets, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus moves into masculine sign, into fire and air, we will have very little earth and water, apart from when, the personal planets and luminaries will be transiting through these signs, but the big players will be all in air and fire signs. So this is really the time, especially with this last retrograde into Capricorn this year. This is really the time when we need to create this stability in our life through creating practices that are helping us to stabilize, because the world is going to get faster. It's going to get more confusing, especially with Jupiter being in Gemini. And as we know, during the 2020, the nodes were in Sagittarius Gemini, and we know how much misinformation, how many lies, how many people were so confused that, what is the truth, what is not truth. And it doesn't matter what is the truth, what isn't truth, because truth is mutable. It's Sagittarius and Jupiter is in Gemini. So it's all about what is your truth, what feels right to you, and the right answers you can only find within. So especially with Jupiter being in Gemini for the next year, there will be more information, more confusion, more stuff coming out to the surface. And the only way to sail through that fog and through all this bombardment of information is to know yourself. To know yourself, find that sense of stability in your own life. And, like, as I said, we are not actually... our brain currently, I don't believe, I mean, obviously people are welcome to challenge me on that, but I don't think we're capable to comprehend and absorb all the information that is available to us. I feel like literally our body, as much as it's a beautiful instrument, in its humanity is limited, and it would burn our sockets literally. So focus on that which actually is self-empowering to you, and which gives you the sense of agency and power in your own life, and brings the sense of joy and peace, because you cannot fix the world single-handedly, you cannot change the world single-handedly. There are circumstances that are completely out of our control, which is especially information of those we are being bombarded by, so we feel hopeless and lost, because there is all this information about things that we cannot change or control. So it's about redirecting our focus and identifying the things in our life and focusing on the things in our life which actually are in our control, which we can change, and we change the world from inside out. So we start from our own garden and our own microcosm. So that's what I feel. You know, people really need to find the security, stability in themselves and in their own life. And that will then help them.
Beautiful advice, Mila. Thank you so much. And sorry, my kid is, I have to take him to school. Thank you. And I hope everyone can in some way upgrade their understanding of themselves through this Pluto Trine Jupiter. Have a